Thank you very much for coming along. Good morning. Good morning to the group as well. Let me start by saying that let's make this interactive. I would love to hear from you, so please keep your questions ready. I'll get the ball rolling, but rather just moderate the questions from you. So let me start. Actually, before I sort of touch on the questions that I've alluded to, one thing that Karan didn't mention was actually the need for having a succession planning or a kind of a wealth planning team within the private bank. I'm assuming all of you have dealt with various private banks, and today's private banking session might actually be interested to know that how important is it to actually have a wealth planning team either within the private bank or external. I mean, it seems to be that when I go around looking for names in the country of people I can actually ask wealth planning questions to, they're still very, very limited. So can I ask you, Bijal, as you deal with the private banking industry, what have you found in terms of the expertise they're developing in-house for this?
Yeah, so what I have really seen is, and of course over the years it's only really increased. I've seen most of the banks, especially in order to retain their ultra HNI clients in their own banking system, they have recognized the need to really create an awareness amongst all the relationship managers as to how it is important to actually do your succession planning. And that is really what we've seen that, the RMs, when they are offering it to their clients, that is what they can actually showcase as an additional extra, which is way above, way above their regular banking needs. So often we have seen banks actually have training sessions for RMs to just understand what is there out in the market, what families are doing. So whenever they do have an ultra HNI client account, they are in a position to really, share their awareness about it.
Okay, so does it only come into ultra HNIs? I mean, surely issues relate to pretty much at any level, right?
Yeah, so I would say, yeah, it's absolutely across all levels. But I would definitely say that if you're looking at most of the ultra HNIs, they do have a fair amount of understanding because they are within a particular societal circle wherein such discussions may be taking place regularly. A lot of them have also set up their own family offices. But you're absolutely right, even amongst the middle class and higher middle class, we've seen a lot of them really create those structures on succession, recognize the needs which have been brought to them by the RMs itself.
Okay, Tariq, let me turn to you. We kind of see in the press a lot of issues. I think just yesterday I saw another one. I think there was Mr. Ostwal only, no? Some Abhay Ostwal and Pankaj Ostwal is not obviously related to you. I'm just interested in terms of the need for succession planning, again, wealth planning. Are they sort of, and they have been around obviously for the more established families, but what do you see as the main differences between what a new age entrepreneur, the likes that Rajesh Iyer was talking about, how are their needs different to those of a more established family?
Okay. I would say that on this end, when you're talking about a new age entrepreneur, it is important for him to look at it from an end-to-end solution. I mean, a lot of times you spend a lot of time in terms of around your business, where you're focusing a lot in terms of how to grow your business, how to either get leverage in the market, how to benefit out of the government benefits or other benefits, and you spend most of your time in terms of in and around growing your business. But they tend to forget the important part that this business has to run into generations. If they're looking at growing the business, they also need to consider how the business would get passed on to the next generation. And that's where is a missing leg at this moment. We've been dealing with two large families, one based out of Delhi, who's in the telecom sector. And he's got three brothers. One brother is based in Dubai, one brother is based in China. And when we met him, I think 2 years back, at that time he had no clue. He's like, we started this very small factory somewhere in the interiors of North. And the way the mobile technology has grown, the way the businesses have grown, and they've become a multi-bagger today. They don't have a clue whose holdings are how, which companies are held under which cross holdings. The next generations are now stepping into the business, and they're not sure if the young generation is going to get along the same way these did. And they had no clue that the business will run into that kind of folds that it has been today. And they didn't really think well. They just focused on the 100% effort was put in growing the business. And that's where the solution really comes in, where when you're looking at something, you should look at a holistic way of how to really look at passing on the legacies of what you create over a period of time. At the same time, structuring your wealth becomes very important because of asset protection needs and other needs that may arise when you are in aggression mode of growing. You tend to take few steps much faster. You tend to miss a few steps. And that's where these needs are what will protect you in case of a backfall or something that goes wrong.
Mr. Ostwal, I mean, we represent a lawyer, a trust company, and a chartered accountant. So people, as somebody said this morning already, they may or may not go to a lawyer or trust company early on, but they certainly go to a chartered accountant. So what have you seen? Obviously, anyone setting up a business is involved with that. Do you get involved in the early stage in a new age sort of entrepreneur when they're setting up? What would you advise them in terms of structures and setup compared to how families like in the past have dealt with it?
A good question. Laws are becoming complicated day by day. So it's not that easy to comply all the laws at a time. When you are in the initial stage startup, you have a lot of energy, a lot of desire, to do a lot of new things, and you tend to do those things without realizing what are the consequences of that. And that's the reality if you are a new startup. And I would tend to take a view that I should do that way only. Because the day you start planning from day one, everything I should organize, I must consult an accountant, lawyer, a wealth manager, nothing will happen. That's the reality. You first grow, and nobody does that very systematically when at the initial phase. But you must realize potential of your business, your ability, your wealth, your understanding of the laws of various things. And then try to take corrective steps as quickly as possible. Having grown at a particular level, then you must correct it as quickly as possible. Otherwise, the chance will be lost. And there are a lot of consequences which arise. There are some simple tips one can give on that, is that when you select a form of organization, you think about it. There are a number of options available. When you create an investment vehicle, you should think about it. There are a lot of options available. The wealth concentration, suppose it all depends upon, again, size of family, type of family. In all the families, there are no, all the peoples in the family may not be of a equal talent, equal ability, equal understanding. Everybody may be having an expertise in different field. And people generally concentrate on the energies, concentrate their energies on their expertise. There would be one driver of a business, and others will be a supportive role. You are lucky in case if you have got many drivers in the business who can drive all type of businesses. Then business will grow multifold. In such a situation, the others in the family tend to think, yes, one of the family member is driving the business, they all do a supportive role. The stage comes in everybody's life that there are some differences which start growing because of multiple reasons. And then you should be able to address those challenges from day one. If you can address proper planning, proper wealth management, proper structure of your organization, for example, you use discretionary trust and all sort of things, possible. It is possible to remove a lot of difficulties. It is not necessary that you should create one discretionary. You could have multiple discretionary trusts. Each family members could have one discretionary trust who should be all beneficiary of one discretionary trust. And then discretionary trust holds the shares so that the family's continuity, succession becomes, assured. And things go on, and then you have a number of challenges every time you come. There are talks about the estate duty coming in, wealth tax being levied, all nonsense things go on. Professionals create these opportunities for themselves by raising these all bogies so that the clients come to them, they consult them, and nothing comes up. Thereafter again, they have done some wrong things, and thereafter they come back again to say, sir, we have done now, the estate duty has not come in, what do we do? Again do something and charge a fees for that. So you should be guarding against such people and do something which is really healthy for your businesses in the future. Business and the family, both should be done properly, well managed, so that there is no disputes arises between the family. And succession should be planned very well in the advance.
Okay, so moving on to, I guess the succession part. We were talking about sort of the first age, the first generation of entrepreneurs, okay? Assuming, let's put aside the established families, okay? I've just set up a new business. Say I'm in Karan's shoes, whatever it was, 10 years ago, setting up this new private wealth firm. What is the typical sort of issues that I should consider as a first-generation entrepreneur? I mean, as you said, if state duty is not an issue, if that's a bogey, as you call it, what are the main issues that I should be concerned about that down the track, 5 years down the track and stuff, 10 years down the track don't hit me?
Suppose you are starting a business and you are a family of 4 brothers, 5 brothers. Everybody has a family. And the issue, if you are a single solo, then it's a different story.
Yeah, assuming
planning becomes very simple.
I was going to say, let's assume
then you don't have to bother at all. You start your business the way you want to start. Start with a proprietorship concern. Maybe start with an LLP. Start with whatever concept. But a stage comes because the laws are so ambulatory here. There are restrictions and restrictions comes in. You cannot convert LLP into a company, and then you have plans. Then look at your plans. What plans you have got? You want to raise equity. You want to raise money. People won't very comfortable dealing with an LLP, giving you the money. Equities cannot be raised. International fundings sometimes become challenge. Now, of course, government is relaxed, allowing investment into LLPs, etc. But the issue arises is, if suppose you want to exponentially grow, you need a form of organization which is a limited company. Maybe LLP, maybe private limited, later on maybe public limited. Don't do everything from day one as a public limited company. As and when the time arises, maybe in your lifespan it can come very quickly because you may be successful, very successful in entrepreneur. In that event, take quick steps in converting and take consultation, proper consultation. You have wealth manager, you have chartered accountant, you have lawyers, and you have bankers also nowadays have got all the specialized wings advising, as you rightly said, that the private wealth management is now very active and this association is also very active. So to advise, take consultation from proper people and adopt the changes in your type of organization and then create your management structure appropriately. And how do you want to control your equity investment? If you are doing everything, your investments are through your own individual self investments, then there would be limitations and difficulties. How do you share your equity with somebody? There are challenges under Section 56 of the Income Tax Act. Somebody cannot subscribe to the shares at a much higher premium. That becomes a taxable. So therefore, you can create a trust, discretionary trust, for your own benefit or for your benefit of your future family members, and that trust invest into the equity of the company. It is more flexible form of organization. Suppose there are a number of additional members in the family joins, and the constitution of the trust allows automatically for them to become members of the trust. Automatically things can change. Sure. It becomes more easy to and robust structure. For a long time, you may not have to change at all.
Bijal, let me turn to you. So taking that example further, do the sort of first generation entrepreneurs actually understand and execute on the separation of business versus ownership succession planning? What do they do? I was just telling Tariq this morning that I'm actually in the process of setting up a startup, and I'm having trouble sort of explaining this to my co-founder, because VCs and angel investors want to invest in something that has multiple co-founders, right? Because they want continuity of business. How do you, as a law firm, advise these new age entrepreneurs to give up some control, I guess, like I said, succession in ownership versus business, especially how do you handle key man risk?
So one, on new age entrepreneurs, I would essentially say, and of course age is no barrier as to when are you really a new age entrepreneur. I would say the awareness amongst the younger generation of succession planning, of having a segregation of ownership and management, they're way more aware. And to that extent, because they've seen families fall, they've seen businesses fall, they've seen a lot go into court cases, etc. So we've seen the awareness being a great deal. I would tend to agree with Mr. Ostwal that at times they are that aware that somewhere it leads to a very long process for them to actually start off a business. So in a situation where they are, though they are aware, I would always say that, the issue or the entire structure is better finalized perhaps when you are once, 4 to 5 years into the business, realizing as to whether or not this particular business does really have a future. Because what often tends to happen is that if at all you set up the entire structure, incurring heavy costs, making it really complicated in a manner such that you do not even know whether the business is going to be successful, at times your effort and your costs which you have put in to create that particular succession structure may not really be in tune or in line with what the business itself merits. So generally what we've seen is that, it is best suited that, okay, you look at your business plan, see what are the immediate needs. And to that extent, yes, if you do feel that in your particular business, you will be looking at having, say, angel capital coming in, private equity, you may be looking at a listing, etc. It is very, very important for your business at least to be set up initially in a manner such that it encourages or allows for such funding. Because very often the changes which you really may make on that particular at, say, 3 to 5 years down the line could have drastic regulatory, legal or tax consequences, which may just make it so expensive for you to undertake any sort of a change that you may just, feel that, okay, I'm not yet ready to actually incur that particular cost. What we've often seen is that the new age entrepreneur does, at least even if at all they don't put up the entire structure in place, they do recognize the fact that most angel investors, and of course angel investing has become really big in India, at least in the last 5 years or so, they do recognize the fact that angel investors do require a segregation between ownership and management. And to that extent, most often than not, we would see the directors of the company or whoever is going to be in charge of management having some sort of independent experts just as a showcasing for these angel investors to get that comfort that, it is not really a banya shop. It's a shop which actually has that particular management in place and the ownership is really segregated. Of course, when it comes to the entrepreneur himself, whether he feels it's the right time to create his trust structures or, whichever are his own succession structures is one thing, but definitely he would ensure that he has an independent management, which he is also a part of, because no angel investor wants a situation wherein the ownership and management, though it's segregated, the owner itself does not really have any say in the management. So though they do want them to have a say, they do not want them to have an absolute say in that. So that's what we've really seen. On Keyman Insurance, we've seen that yes, people are taking it up very, very, and looking at it very, very, diligently. We're also seeing a lot of people actually plan Keyman succession. So to that extent, an entrepreneur, when he's setting up his business, he's ensuring that it is not just one person who's really managing the business. He does actually have a situation where there is a second and a third in line. So in a situation where the key man or whoever is first in line decides to part ways, or let's assume he has some personal consequence as a result of which he is not being able to engage in himself, it's not a situation where the business in itself collapses. And of course, we've seen, over the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen a number of situations where you've seen individually started businesses doing extremely well. You have a personal situation, you could have a freak accident, you could have a death, you could have some sort of, agony with respect to children, etc., wherein not having left a second line in place, it totally collapses his business and diminishes the value. So we've definitely seen that people are incurring heavily on planning on who the key persons would also be. So not only succession on ownership, not only succession on business or management, but also succession on who is really going to be the CEO, the next gen CEO.
Right. Okay. Tariq, what are you seeing in terms of Indian business families where they may have been in a very traditional business? In fact, I saw a friend of mine just last week, and her family's into brick making, okay, and they've done quite well out of it. But the next generation just thinks it's very sort of traditional, old age, and they want to try something completely new. And what they want to try is nothing related even to the main business. So there's no expertise that they want to inherit. They want to try something completely different. How are Indian business families handling their second generation wanting to do something completely different?
I'll just continue from where Bijal left. A lot of these families are now getting into a psyche of actually creating a second generation. And the second generation here definitely did not always have to be someone from your family. I mean, a lot of traditionally run businesses are now focusing towards moving it into a corporatized style, where we've come across a lot of clients who are looking at creating a second line or a third line or a group of 2 or 3 individuals below them who can then run the companies. Run the companies in the most professional manner the way it is. At times there is a disconnect, slight disconnect I would say, which comes in terms of ownership and management. There are a lot of the young generation who do not want to get into the family businesses and set up something on their own. Whether they're getting into a job kind of a setup, whether they're continuing living overseas and doing something there, whether they're coming back to India and setting up a new setup completely but not continuing the family business. So there has always been an emotional angle where the parents want the children to take over the business or at least get some benefited out of the businesses that have been set by them over a period of time. And that's where I would go back to what Mr. Ostwal said, that setting up a discretionary trust kind of a structure would probably be a more suitable one where you have the ownership of the companies, ownership of your shares, all of that held in the trust, and you could have set of professionals run the companies. The family members could still be benefited from that trust or still be benefited from the generation left businesses. The business could have a long-term continuity, run in a more professional manner, where there could be a disconnect or a clear demarcation between voting rights and management powers, and the business can then run in a much professional way. In fact, there are a lot of families who are in a similar situation today where the next generation does not want to step into the business and are looking at realistic solutions.
Thank you. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let me come back to you, Mr. Ostwal. We're talking about setting up trust structures. We've also sort of seen people basing their holding of their business and or personal assets in overseas jurisdictions, whether it's through a trust or whether through holding companies. Now, obviously, the Panama paper leaks were quite a turning point, in my view, something that has been going on for quite a few years, sort of more increased transparency. How has that affected Indian families in terms of how they think about where to base their holding companies or structuring their business through to what routes? Oh. Has that changed at all, firstly? And if so, how?
No, it's not because Panama leak has figured that's the reason why thinking should change. The Panama leak was a consequence anyway, was to happen sometime or the other. It is just beginning of something has happened. There are 1,000 private investment bankers or disgraced the nominee companies, etc. in the world. One after the other, they will be leaked. Not that Panama is the only. Panama is the second one. Port Police was the first. And I'm told there are other hundreds in the list going on. Forget about it. Now, just because Panama leak has happened, people will not stop investing abroad. But there are official ways of investing abroad. People in the past were lured by the investment bankers internationally who come regularly to India, and they were telling the management, you can do this way, that way, without consulting an accountant, without consulting a lawyer. He felt the industrial house or the chairman or the key person in the business felt that this is another way of parking your wealth somewhere very safely. So there are 3 types of money. One is declared money, official money. Second is number 2 money, which is hidden money from the tax office, but known to all family members. There is third number money, number 3 money, which is neither known to family members, your partners, your colleagues, your wife, and you have taken advantage. Your bankers who have come from foreign country told you, hey, you can create this wealth abroad and we will help you. We will create nominee companies, trustee companies, create the shareholding companies, and you park. And the Panama is one of those type of cases. One of those second or third type of case. And from the responses from the various people's interviews, which appears that this is even all the 3 type of cases are there in Panama. For example, some leading eminent lawyer or eminent actor said, my Panama companies are all officially declared. I have taken LRS scheme advantage by setting up the companies, and taken 250,000 and put the money there. So all the three can fall into that category. Now your concentration is on possibly second and third. Because of this Panama leak, what are the other avenues available? Where do a person go abroad for in a safe haven? My opinion is it should be driven by your needs rather than just finding a safe haven. India is the best haven. Best rate of returns are here. Why do you need abroad? But you want to park money abroad for doing business, genuine needs of your business. You are acquiring businesses. You want to acquire some properties, some legalized way of acquiring, setting up businesses. Set up a subsidiary companies abroad through a holding company. Maybe one holding company is permitted. Choose that jurisdiction where you want to set up a holding company. But be sure that we are now going into various laws in the country which are almost having impact like all Western world laws. Like we are going to have in the country CFC, Controlled Foreign Corporation Regulation, sooner than later. Now, wherever your holding company is, and if that company has incomes received from various subsidiaries, downward subsidiaries, which are operating companies, and the incomes are received by way of a dividend. Dividend is a passive income. Don't bring it to the country, country will tax it. There are 50 countries which are right now taxing CFC, have CFC regulation. So therefore, why do you want to park the money if you have got the money used for the purpose of operating businesses abroad? Nothing to worry. You set up a holding company, don't get the dividend. The day you want to get the dividend, get into country. Your tax rate is quite safe, 15%. Unfortunately, in 16 budget, they brought in HNI dividend tax at 10%. Anybody getting more than 10 lakh of rupees dividend from any sources of all the companies put together, aggregating 10 lakhs or more, 10% additional tax. This is the only country in the world we have triple taxation. I can understand, so far in my life I have studied only double taxation. You have tax at the level of company's profit, you have a tax at the level of dividend declaration tax, and then you have a HNI receiving more than 10 lakh of rupees, 10% tax. Virtually an HNI pays 30% tax on his dividend income, partly from company and partly from his pocket. Why can't we recommend to the government a system where tax fully dividend and give credit for the foreigners who are getting tax on this amount? So it should be converted into TDS. It will not be headache. Now your main question, which again I am coming back to, is where the holding company structure. There are a number of jurisdictions. You can use them for the purpose of creating. Look at the laws, flexibility of the laws of that country, which gives you a freedom to operate. No restrictions, no FEMA-like regulations in that country. First is that. Exchange control should not be there. Capital gain share tax should not be there in that country. So you have flexibility of increasing, decreasing the capital whenever and wherever you want. So, and the no financial controls, but good financial regulator. With good financial regulator, you get a credibility to your holding company. They're very important. Now you set up a company in a country where there is no regulator at all, because people like freedom is too much freedom. I think that's also too bad. So you have good financial regulator, no capital gains, no financial foreign exchange controls, should be a good enough jurisdiction to set up the company. And third, lastly, most important, no political risk. If political risk, nobody want to set up the companies in Pakistan. So also nobody want to create a companies in India as a holding company. It is suicidal to create a holding company in India. If you want to hold the structure abroad through an Indian, if you are a foreigner, you set up an Indian company for the purpose of holding structures abroad, suicidal. Because you are stepping into the jurisdiction which is huge, complex, complicated, ever changing. There is no certainty, no guarantee. So therefore avoid such all the limitations which we have. An Indian is the best advisor, because you have come across so much of difficulties, so much of regulation changes. You are robust in taking call on any regulation of any country. So these are the standard principles which I would lay. Then you can have, based on this, you look at the jurisdiction, you come to your mind is very nearest is close by Singapore. One of the best jurisdiction. Good financial regulator, no capital gains tax, no foreign exchange regulations, control, good company law. As we understand, we are a common law country, we understand company law, common laws very well. Civil laws are little difficulty. And then political atmosphere is very good, discipline is there. So Singapore is one good jurisdiction which comes to mind immediately. And the tax laws are flexible. Sure. You earn the income, get into the country, taxable. Don't get the income into the country, keep the account abroad other than Singapore and get all your income accumulated there, Singapore, and disclose it to Singapore authorities. This is very happy, no problem.
Sure. Just one point on that though. As much as Singapore is a flexible country and good,
I gave one example.
No, I was going to say, but do you think the fact that even Apple setting up their holding company in Ireland or Uber or any of these companies routing through a different country than where they're getting the money from or where they're technically headquartered, just the principle of I'm an American company, but I'm going to base my holding company in another country, okay? So I'm an Indian company, I get most of my revenues and clients from India, but I'm going to put my holding structure in Singapore. Just the principle of shifting that, do you think that there is this wave of anti-globalization and transparency that is coming? Would you advise that really to an Indian entrepreneur to even consider this?
Well, G20 and OECD's resolution on BEPS is equally important. You must consider that today you can't use the tax treaties for double non-taxation purposes. Very important. So therefore, if you want to use the treaty advantages, you should look it very carefully. Anti-treaty provisions, abuse of treaties, double non-taxation, creating hybrid instrument, one entity considered as a limited company, the other entity is considered in the other jurisdiction as an LLP, and therefore you don't pay tax on interest as well as on dividend. In one country income is characterized as a dividend and the second country characterizes it as an interest, or otherwise vice versa. It is all these are the issues which have now surfaced. Particularly because of downturn of economy in 2008, US problems, they came across the issues, how do we tackle those issues? Then the issues surfaced is at Google and Apple, and they have all done their headquartering through Ireland and done a business throughout the world by setting up companies in Ireland, double Irish structure which is very popular, Ireland, Dutch and Ireland, and then whole of Europe, didn't pay tax anywhere in the world. Therefore, global profit 70 billion, tax paid in the developing countries 1 billion, 69 billion is tax-free revenue. So these are all structures which are challenged. Luxembourg was another country where the government of Luxembourg was giving you ruling very freely. Asked for a ruling and they said nothing is taxable, just set up a company here. Right. And that was all binding on the government. And those have come to the attention. Now you have to do something great, different, new. And it is not that something will stop totally. Let me honestly tell you. Things are going on, things will continue. Right. But today the rule is, whatever you create substance in your structure. Substance is the solution. If you have a substance, nobody can challenge. Now, what is substance is really a $1 million question. Now, some countries say define the substance, and the definition of substance like Netherlands has done it, Mauritius has done it, some other countries, the substance means you should have a director in my country who has authority to operate bank account, you should maintain your books of accounts here, you should record minutes. All this is nonsense. The government of India is not going to accept any such substance rules. The government of India, we look at the population, small seminar like this also you have got 200 people here. So therefore there in foreign country you call seminar, you will get 25, 30 people. The substance is not there. So you have to, our definition of substance is different than the definition of substance in the world. Therefore you must keep in mind the jurisdiction where from you are coming, and then you apply your substance theory, work out systematically a good substance. Now, for example, in a finance business, somebody tell me that I need 3 or 4 people in Mauritius to do the work. Is it good substance? I said it all depends. What type of business? I need to understand what business you are talking. If I can do that business, what you are talking, 2 persons are enough, then yes, it is a good substance. I cannot do the business, substance is not there. Right. So this is such an ambulatory, fragile thing, you must be planned it properly.
Sure. Do you guys have any thoughts on this particular issue, on this whole transparency, globalization? Okay, let me take some questions. Are there any questions for the panel? Anyone? Okay, some hands are going up. There's one. Do you want to just stand up and ask your question?
Oh.
Tax on dividend.
Yes.
We just came across one client who said that whether the tax amount of 10 lakh dividend or the income above 10 lakh is taxable, that clarity was also met. Can you throw some light on that?
No, the clarity has come very well. The law is very clear. A dividend received in aggregate more than 10 lakhs per individual, per person. So if you have received 1 crore rupees dividend, then 90 lakhs will become taxable. 10 lakh will not be taxable. First 10 lakh will be normal treatment.
Okay.
Earlier there was a point, when the budget was presented, there was an issue. A dividend of rupees 10 lakhs. Then the issue was whether dividend from each company should be 10 lakh to be taxable or beyond 10 lakhs. Then that was aggregate, that issue was, loophole was plucked in the final act. This is in aggregate 10 lakhs or more. That should be taxable.
One more question at the back.
Yeah, just one question regarding if a violation is identified as undisclosed monies, do you think that the accountants and the lawyers who have helped create these structures should be penalized too for that? Do you have that, any opinion on that?
What is the question?
Should they be penalized?
So the accountants and the
Yeah,
lawyers,
they should be penalized.
What
They
about the
are
trust
abettors.
guys? What about the trust guys? Are they sort of Tariq? Why pick on the accountants and the lawyers? Pick on the trust guys too.
No, in his opinion, trust company is definitely to be penalized. Accountant and lawyer, he has an option to penalize. If there is an abatement, they are party to the abatement, yes, they should be penalized. Why not?
Yeah? That was your question, right? Should they be, any more questions? What about the private banker? Should you think they should be involved as well?
The
Sorry.
majority of young generation is having an attitude of making service rather than start a business. How is the attitude to be changed?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. What?
See, majority of young generation is
Yeah.
having attitude of making service rather than to make a business. So
Okay.
they prefer having stable income.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get your question. Let me just take.
Employment versus entrepreneurship, which I don't think is true, but that's what his question.
Are you-
Employment, fixed income to entrepreneurship.
Oh, your
they?
question is whether one should go for employment or should do a business.
Yeah.
It's a mental attitude. You
Employment
have a
dega
risk-taking,
kaun?
you have a
Employment dega
risk-taking
wai business
ability, you have a risk-taking ability, come what it may, you will not go for employment.
Okay, I think we're actually out of time. Was there one last question? And then we're winding up, sorry.
Good morning to the delegates sitting on the dais. My question is, what according to you is the biggest threat when it comes in terms of talent acquisition in the field of wealth management or private banking in India?
I'm sorry, this is wealth planning sort of panel rather than the HR. I think there's another session straight after this on talent management. So I think that panel might be able to answer it. On that note, can I just ask your support to thank the panel? Thank you very much. Entertaining as usual. Thank you.
Thank you.